New leads in the Brown University mass shooting. Person of interest identified. Authorities now revisiting a possible connection with the killing days later of an MIT professor. Marijuana reclassified, no longer in the same league as heroin or LSD, now with ketamine and testosterone. What research avenues on medical use could now be open? The White House pledges American astronauts back on the moon by 2028. The brand new NASA administrator joins us to outline the space race with China. Hello, everyone. I'm Major Garrett in Washington. Let me welcome you to the Takeout. We start this evening with a significant development in the mass shooting at Brown University. Authorities tell CBS News they have identified the person of interest. An arrest warrant has been issued, and a search for that individual, quite obviously, has intensified. Sources also tell CBS News that law enforcement is revisiting a possible connection between Saturday's mass shooting at the Brown University campus and the targeted killing of an MIT professor 2 days later. The victim in that shooting, a 47-year-old physicist and fusion scientist, died on Tuesday. Earlier this week, and this is important, local and federal authorities said they saw no link between those shootings. Now, apparently, they do. Officials have been frustrated in their efforts to find the gunman who killed 2 Brown University students and wounded 9 others Saturday inside a classroom that was used for a finals study session. They have released enhanced surveillance video showing the suspect just before and just after those shootings and have appealed numerous times to the public for help. We start with the breaking developments with Katrina Kaufman, who joins us from Providence, Rhode Island. Katrina, thank you. What do we know?
Major, I have just learned from a source that the reason our press briefing, which is supposed to take place at 4 p.m., has been delayed is because authorities are seeking to apprehend this suspect. They are hoping that that will happen before they brief the press tonight. So we are still awaiting to see whether that development will in fact happen today. Suddenly, there has been a lot of quick movement. We've been told this is a very fluid situation. They have identified this person. We have confirmed that. As you said, we know that there is an arrest warrant out. They are exploring this potential link to the killing at MIT. That is not something that's confirmed, Major, but it is something that they are looking closely at right now.
And Katrina, that would be very welcome news in Providence of a suspect, maybe possibly soon to be apprehended. What's the overall atmosphere there now?
You know, I spent the morning talking to students here, Major. They say that there's just a very unsettling feeling here. There's a fear that this person hasn't been captured yet. The community is really banding together. One of the people I spoke with is an international student here. He said that he will be staying through the holidays. There's meal sharing going on. People are really working to support each other, but they do feel fear, and there's such an emptiness on this campus. One of the students said that there's a heavy feeling here, that there's just a sense of sorrow that something like this happened in Providence, Rhode Island, happened at Brown University, a place where they really felt safe, Major.
And Katrina, as near as you can tell, is this search going on in the general Providence, Rhode Island area, meaning authorities are under the impression that the person of interest has not fled the region?
We know that CBS Boston has captured some activity in Boston as well, so it looks like this search has gone outside of Rhode Island. They, again, do not know exactly where the suspect is right now, but we know that they are very actively looking for this person. They have identified them, and there's definitely at least some activity going on in Boston, Major.
With all the latest from Providence, Rhode Island, Katrina Kaufman, I'm so very thankful. Thank you so much. President Trump gave a primetime speech last night. Maybe you saw it. It was a compacted and you might have noticed a bit more caffeinated version of a speech he delivered at a rally last week in northeastern Pennsylvania. Half backward-looking with scorching blame to former President Biden and his administration, half forward-looking with promises of big league prosperity next year. Here is a word cloud of the two speeches. The larger the word, the more frequently it was used. Prices, the biggest of all. And what the president repeats is what the president cares about. It was an exercise in narrative adjustment. Polls, ours and others, show the public has soured on the Trump economy and considers it his, not Biden's. We thought with the holiday season approaching and the praise President Trump has recently given to himself on his economic performance, we might offer this cinematic depiction of how the president thinks about the economy you inhabit. The vehicle? Ralphie from A Christmas Story, daydreaming about an evaluation to come. All the president is waiting for? The rapturous applause. Maybe what you were waiting for is a better economic reality. Republican prospects in next year's midterms will doubtless hinge on perceptions of reality, not daydreams. Ralphie's or anyone else's. Our Aaron Navarro joins us from the North Lawn of the White House with more. Aaron, there was also something the president did today with some significance in the space of the classification of marijuana as a drug in America. Please let us know.
Major, he signed an executive order that essentially directs the Attorney General to take the formal steps to reclassify marijuana from what's known as a Schedule I drug on the same level as LSD and heroin to putting it at a Schedule III classification at the same level as anabolic steroids and codeine and cough syrup. Now, that does not make marijuana legal for recreational use, but from talking to experts as well as business leaders in the marijuana industry, they say that what this will do to expand research is really notable. It will enable private and public institutions, academic institutions to do more to research marijuana for medical usage. They say that this could lead to marijuana being used for products for weight loss, to deal with sleep. So they think that this can make a really big impact when it comes to the medicine industry.
Aaron, and what is the White House saying in the aftermath of the primetime address last night?
You saw the National Economic Director Chair Kevin Hassett call it, quote, a home run speech. You've seen many on Capitol Hill in terms of Republicans. Lindsey Graham say that this was the message they wanted to hear from President Trump, while many Democrats have panned it. And, you know, if you enjoyed what you saw last night, you're going to expect to see it at a longer version of the director's cut, if you will, tomorrow in Rocky Mount, North Carolina. As President Trump said in his Oval Office executive order signing this afternoon, that the speech he'll give tomorrow will essentially be what he did last night, but just a little bit longer, signaling that this kind of half and half, blaming the Biden administration while trying to talk about what he has done in his agenda during his second term, seems to be the formula that will be used in these speeches going into the 2026 congressional midterms.
Aaron Navarro, thank you so much. To Capitol Hill now, where the House narrowly passed a Republican-backed health care bill which does not extend the soon-to-expire Obamacare tax credit. Speaker Johnson did confirm that in January, the House will consider the Democrats' successful discharge petition to force a vote on extending those tax credits for 3 full years. 4 House Republicans broke with their party and signed on to that discharge petition. Pennsylvania Republican Congressman Ryan McKenzie was one of them, and I spoke to him earlier today. On the topic of soon-to-expire Obamacare tax credits, Congressman, what's the state of play?
Well, I think right now what we are looking for is not only a way to provide short-term relief to Americans who are struggling with the high cost of health care. At the same time, we would like to see reforms that can bring down the cost of health care in the long term. And so we have offered 2 bipartisan packages. They have discharge petitions at the desk that we could be voting on. But because we did not get Democrat support from Leader Jeffries and his conference on those, we had to go a different route. And so we signed on to a discharge petition, which is just a 3-year extension of the tax credits. Hopefully, as that works its way through the process, we can add additional reforms, because we've seen that that proposal alone did not get the 60 votes that it needs in the Senate. It failed over there previously. So again, we're looking to continue this conversation, because we know so many Americans are looking for affordability and relief in the cost of health care.
Congressman, to be clear, the House will not vote on that discharge petition this week or this year, will it?
Yeah, we were looking for a vote. That's why we've signed the discharge petition. We think that a vote should be coming. What we've seen is, again, there are going to be ongoing conversations. If anything does happen, you're going to see likely an extension of the enrollment period. And I know some people in my local community have seen price spikes already from the cost of health care. They've decided to go without health care in the interim, and they've said, hopefully Congress is going to sort this out, and then I can re-enroll. So we do need to do this as quickly as possible, but at this point, with the Senate where they are and a lack of consensus on a compromise package in the House, we aren't able to get anything done. And I think what is really clear that we should also speak to is that we want to see long-term, durable health care reforms. And the way to do that is in a bipartisan fashion, because why we're in this situation is because we had a totally partisan Affordable Care Act, an extension that was done in a purely partisan fashion by the Democrats, and then when there are changes of power, which naturally occur over the years, the next party in power has a different opinion on it. But if you can actually do something in a bipartisan fashion, that way whoever is in charge down the road, there will be advocates in that majority conference, and it's more likely that those changes stay in place. So again, I'm confident that we can actually do it, but the discharge resolution that we signed was the only path forward at this time to continue these bipartisan conversations that I've been a part of.
Have you been penalized in any way or criticized internally within the conference for signing that discharge petition? It's a pretty bold move. Not everyone does it.
You know, I think there are certainly some members of our conference that have spoken about their displeasure with the approach that we've taken. But I just spoke to a member on the floor today who is very opposed to the 3-year extension. And I said to him, this is something that is very important for my district. And I gave the example of a small business owner, a restaurateur, who is going to see his price go from about $400 up to over $900 a month for him and his family. Unsustainable. He said he's going to de-enroll and wait for some change down the road. That gentleman that I talked to on the floor said, you know what, I understand where you're coming from. And he said, if we can do a shorter term extension plus some meaningful long-term reforms, I think we could actually find a middle ground. And so that's what we're trying to do. I get that it was an uncommon and unnecessary approach that was taken this time, but we had to because there was no other opportunity in front of us, and so we had to go this route. But I think it is actually starting to force conversations between not only our conference, but in a bipartisan way as well.
Do you fear any retribution from House Speaker Johnson?
Well, I think that it's very clear. I mean, Speaker Johnson and I have a great working relationship. He understands that I'm sent here to represent my district, and I'm going to do that every single day. And he's very understanding of my concerns and my considerations for our local residents. So I think he understands the dynamics. Everybody across the country should do that. They should represent their district, and he understands that. And that's what a good speaker does, is their understanding of the different nuances of individual members' districts.
Your move and the move of 3 other Republicans onto this discharge petition promulgated questions for the Speaker yesterday. Has he lost control of the House? Has he?
He is not. And I talked to another member on the floor, again, somebody that was opposed to this, and I said, we all voted for this same set of rules that allows 218 members. Sometimes it's going to be lopsided one way or the other. Sometimes it's going to have a more even balance to it. But that is a part of the rules, and that is something that Speaker Johnson signed on to as well. If we believe that there should be a different approach that gives more control to the Speaker in the future, that's something that we can certainly consider in the next set of rules. But this is something that the Speaker voted on. Members of our conference voted on these rules as well. So I don't think he's lost control at all. In fact, I think he is living with the rules that we all voted on and we supported at the beginning of this Congress.
You talked about the need for bipartisanship on health care reform. The president has advocated again and again for giving money directly to individual Americans through health savings accounts. Democrats call that junk insurance and a non-starter. Is that a path to bipartisanship?
So I think it should be one alternative that is on the table. What you see with all of these different proposals that are out there is they are going to address certain components of healthcare costs for Americans. And so by putting money directly into an HSA account, that could do things like help offset costs of deductibles or copays that an individual may have. So I don't think we should exclude that and say that that is not a potential part of the plan, but I think we do want to see larger reforms beyond just that.
Republican Congressman Ron McKenzie of Pennsylvania, specifically Allentown, Pennsylvania. It's been a pleasure. Thank you, sir.
You got it. Thank you, sir.
Still to come on the Takeout, NASA's brand new administrator, day one, Jared Isaacman, talks about America's future plans in space. Also, musical chairs in Texas Democratic politics. You heard all about this. Jasmine Crockett jumps in the Senate race. Colin Allred bows out. And Allred runs for a Democratic Congresswoman Julie Johnson's seat. Not happy about that, Julie Johnson, and she joins me next. Plus, my conversation with a man who beat brain cancer after being given a 1% chance of survival. Robert Brams and his book, Forever Optimistic. The Takeout returns in 90 seconds. It took almost a year, but Jared Isaacman has been confirmed by the Senate as the new administrator of NASA. We talked just a few moments ago, and we began our conversation with his somewhat circuitous route to the head of NASA. Administrator Isaacman, you were nominated, withdrawn, renominated, and confirmed. What did you learn from that process, and what was lost in all that time?
Well, I appreciate the question. It turned out I had a lot of opportunities to speak with senators. I had 2 hearings, and what I learned is that everybody loves NASA. I mean, you saw it on full display in my hearings. Everyone's excited about NASA and its extraordinary mission to unlock the secrets of the universe. So it's been a great process, a very interesting one. And I'll tell you, my first day on the job, here I am at the Oval Office where the president signs probably the most important national space policy since the Kennedy era, recommitting us to the moon, building a lunar base. I couldn't be happier to work with an extraordinary team at the agency.
2028, United States astronauts back on the moon. Is that aspirational or a guarantee?
Oh, I'm looking to pull those timelines in. You know, the president says we got to return American astronauts by 2028, but we're just months away from sending American astronauts around the moon for the first time in more than a half a century. We're going to do everything we can to pull in those timelines so when American astronauts do return to the moon under President Trump's term, we've already got infrastructure there. We're already working on building our lunar base. And at the same time, the national space policy calls for us to be making investments in next-generation propulsion, building nuclear spaceships. So President Trump is already setting up for the next giant leap as we look beyond the moon to Mars and beyond.
Speaking of that leap, it's my understanding, Mr. Administrator, the idea about returning to the moon, ice, water, hydrogen, and using it as a springboard propulsively to Mars. Do I have that about right?
Well, I think that's certainly one of the reasons to go back to the moon is to realize some of its resources, in addition to its scientific and its economic potential. You know, you have helium-3 that's on the lunar surface, which can create a more efficient fusion reaction, could be the future of energy here back on Earth. You know, sources of energy have been greatly important to our foreign policy for more than a century. So ensuring we get back to the moon, set up our infrastructure, realize those economic advantages, because the consequence could mean a shift in the balance of power here on Earth. I also think it's about fulfilling a promise for more than 35 years that presidents have said we're going to return to the moon and chart a course for Mars. But really, it was only under President Trump in his first term that he returned American spaceflight capability to the United States. We spent a decade paying the Russians to send our astronauts to space until President Trump. He kicked off the Artemis program, and now he's taking it a step further with this national space policy, again, committing us back to the moon, setting up the infrastructure, and then going beyond.
Is the moon big enough for the United States and China, or just the United States?
Well, it's a pretty big moon, but I would say that there are parts of it that are of great interest to us, that do have access to sunlight, that do have ice on it. You know, the president certainly can appreciate a good real estate transaction. That's prime real estate on the moon. We're going to want to get there, start the development of our lunar base. So I would say that's a pretty great interest. But there's an awful lot to learn on the moon, and it's something that we should be working on as we develop our deep space capabilities, working a little bit in parallel as we think about what comes next.
Well, you know what I'm driving at there, Mr. Administrator. It's a race against China. It's a national security concern. Is that a place of potential future cooperation, or are we always going to regard the moon and our activities there as ours, and China better back off if it doesn't get there before us?
Well, we are faced with a great competition, which can be a good thing. Competition is a great way to concentrate our resources on the needle movers. It brings out the best in us. It forces very interesting technological development that can have applications here on Earth. We do not do this alone. We go with our allies. You have dozens of countries around the world that have signed the Artemis Accords. Many of their space agencies are contributing to the technology that enable us to do it. So I think healthy competition with the Chinese is a good thing. We just don't want to lose.
Understood. What role will SpaceX or the private sector play in accelerating these timelines to get to the moon before 2028?
So already you have Blue Origin and SpaceX that are under contract to build us lunar landers. And they're also working very closely with NASA, pioneering rapid reusability of heavy lift launch vehicles. You've seen that on display in Texas, where SpaceX has caught their Starship with the actual launch pad. And just a couple months ago, we saw Blue Origin catch their reusable heavy lift launch vehicle out on their drone ship. This is a capability that's vital for national security. I mean, when you can have heavy reusable launch vehicles, you can send payload, you can send cargo, you can send humans. Not just to the moon, but to Mars and beyond. So it's pretty vital for national security and also all of our scientific endeavors. But I would also say it's not a new development. In the 1960s, NASA did not go at it alone. We had companies like Boeing and McDonnell Douglas, that were building as contractors alongside NASA. Many of them are still here today, and we have some new ones like SpaceX. The country is certainly far better off by having organizations like SpaceX, Blue Origin, and all the other commercial providers that are contributing to this grand endeavor.
Brand new NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman, thank you for your time, and I invite you to continue the conversation because we are relentlessly interested and curious about the future of space exploration. So please come back.
Will do. Thank you very much. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas.
Thanks. So Republicans redistricted in Texas, and that sent some Democrats scrambling. One of them is Julie Johnson. She has a seat in the House now, but she's in a primary, and she's not too pleased about that entire process. We'll talk to her about it and lots else when we come back. This is The Takeout. Welcome back to The Takeout. Thanks for hanging out with us. Here is a look at what else we and now you are watching this evening. The Consumer Price Index rose at an annual rate of 2.7% in November. It was lower than the 3% that most private sector economists projected. It might be a sign that inflation pressures are easing, though there is a bit of uncertainty about that because of the information gap in government surveys following the prolonged federal government shutdown. October's report on this was never released, meaning economists do not have a full picture of all the various inflationary data, so they're waiting for more information after this month. The Pentagon today released this new footage of what is now the latest U.S. aerial strike on a suspected drug boat. It killed 4. This is the 26th strike since these attacks began in September. The death toll now stands at least 99. Military actions in the Caribbean and the Pacific have come under increased scrutiny on Capitol Hill. The White House, though, says these actions will continue. The intelligence community and the Pentagon assert over and over that these are drug trafficking boats, but the exact proof of that has yet to be provided to those curious about that in Congress. Democrats on the House Oversight Committee have released 68 new photos from the Jeffrey Epstein estate. It is part of 95,000 photos obtained by the committee last week. These most recently released photos include travel documents, a screenshot of text messages about an 18-year-old girl from Russia, and further insight into who Epstein spent time with. And we should note, of course, just because someone is in any of these photos, it doesn't implicate them criminally or otherwise. Tomorrow is the deadline for the Justice Department to release all of the Epstein files in accordance with a law passed by Congress after some duress and signed by President Trump. Texas Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett's Senate bid for the Democratic nomination has upended 2 Democratic candidacy. Her campaign sent Colin Allred out of that Senate race and into a House race against incumbent Julie Johnson for Texas's 33rd congressional district. I spoke with Congresswoman Johnson earlier today. Congresswoman, I don't need to tell you, but redistricting has plunged you into a primary you did not expect with Colin Allred. He was on our show December 18th, and he said he would be a strong voice representing Dallas, stand up to Trump, confront the affordability crisis and corruption, but also teach the Democratic Party some lessons so it's not so associated with elites and elitism and disconnected from folks. Will you evaluate those remarks?
Well, you know, what we know is, yes, redistricting certainly put chaos into our political system in Texas and is doing so across the country. And, you know, I'm thrilled to be running for re-election in this district. It has a significant portion of my existing district, part of the legislative seat that I represent, and just a very well connected. But yes, you know, people need affordability. That's the #1 issue. I've been up here in Congress fighting for those issues on, you know, the cost of groceries. A cart of groceries that people pay for right now is out of control. It's the highest it's ever been. A cup of coffee, health care, energy prices. These are the things that we need to be focusing on, and I'm certainly doing that while I'm here.
Is Colin Allred AWOL on those issues, or was he, in your opinion?
You know, Colin has certainly advocated for those things too. You know, I'm not going to suggest that he hasn't. That's what Democrats do. You know, I think people really like to pit within the family. But, you know, I'm certainly here and I am serving this constituency. I'm working very hard. I've authored a lot of bills. I'm laser focused on the climate that we have. He's been out of Congress for several years now, and I'm in it now and focusing on these issues on a day-to-day basis.
You also been quoted saying a lot of women have had a similar experience where men vacate, women get promoted, the men don't succeed, and then they try to swoop back down and kick the women out of their spot. Is that what you think Colin Allred's trying to do?
It certainly is an implication. You know, it's... you know, women have faced this, and I think it's a conversation that needs to be had. You know, right, wrong, or otherwise, there still are glass ceilings for women in this country, and every aspect, not just politics and business and the like. And women advance and then get pushed back down or get looked over or somehow seen that this is a different seat. I have to wonder if a different member of Congress was sitting in this same seat if he would have made this same decision. I don't know if he would have. And so, you know, I think it's a conversation that women are having. A lot of women have reached out to me in this race, very upset with his decision to challenge me, and with a lot of support. As we've seen this with Emily's List, Select Democratic Women, many women in the House are endorsing immediately, and I think you're seeing a really robust response to women because women across this country have felt the same thing in their own lives.
He said about you, it's outrageous that in less than a year in Congress, Julie Johnson has traded stocks hundreds of times, calling it gross and saying you've become fantastically wealthier. True or false?
Completely false. It's you know, the thing is that in Congress, what we're supposed to do is ethically disclose our trades, which I have done. I've also signed on to the stock trading ban immediately when I got here, and I've co-lead several things, and I'm in the process of divesting my stocks. It's what I have pledged to do. That's what I have been doing. So it's really disingenuous to imply that I'm doing something nefarious. What I said was members of Congress should not be holding stocks. I had a long career before I came to Congress. I definitely, you know, had an equity portfolio, and I have been in the process of voluntarily divesting of that. So if you look at the trades, it's been sell, sell, sell. I've been selling my portfolio because I do believe that members of Congress should not be holding equities like this. And so I have supported that with legislation that I've signed off on, and I have supported that in my own actions to be able to divest of my own stuff. So to imply that there's a nefarious component to that is very disingenuous, and it's not truthful.
Congressman, you know, this week the House voted narrowly, but it still passed a bill that would criminalize transgender care in America for minors. The Trump administration is promulgating rules that would limit or ban the reimbursement through federal health insurance for the same kind of transgender care for minors. How do you evaluate those moves, and do you expect that to be a point of conversation in your primary with Colin Allred?
Well, I think it's absolutely wrong to criminalize parents' decisions over the control of the health care of their children. I absolutely also think it's morally wrong to criminalize physicians who are trained, who have expertise in the field of medicine, from interfering with the physician-patient relationship. I think whether or not, you know, trans health care, that is a very personal, that is a very private decision that families make, that parents make about their kids, and that with the consultation of doctors and physicians and medical organizations. organizations. Every single medical organization and professional association has come out against the criminalization bill that was just passed. I vehemently oppose it. I think it's wrong. I think parents should be in the position to make the decisions for their health care. They're the ones that know their kids best. They're the ones that have the best opportunity to make the evaluations, and that should rest with them, not with politicians who don't know a damn thing about their child or don't know a damn thing about the health care relating to their kid.
You and other members of Congress are getting ready to leave Washington, which means the enhanced Obamacare tax credits will expire on December 31st. There's a discharge petition, which means the House has to confront this issue first week back in January. Size it up for me. What does January look like on this issue?
Well, it's going to be really interesting. You know, the Speaker has consistently refused to bring about a vote on extending the Affordable Care Act tax credits. I signed on to that discharge petition. You know, the American people want their health care. They want affordable health care. I have over 100,000 people in my congressional district that get their health coverage from the ACA. You know, Texas leads the nation in people without access to health insurance. So this is a very personal fight to the people I represent, and also for just what is right. I think it's interesting that 4 Republicans who are in very vulnerable districts have done their polling, and they realize also that their constituents, that the American people want affordable health care, and have signed on to this discharge petition. So we're going to get a vote, and I have a feeling it's going to pass the House by more than 218.
When the president says, as he did today, that the Democratic Party is owned by the insurance companies and he wants to give money directly to individual Americans, how do you evaluate that?
That is outrageous. You know, the Democratic Party are here to benefit the people. We're trying to make sure that health insurance coverage is more affordable for them. This is a direct benefit. The tax credit goes to the people. It's on your very tax return. It's your premium that you pay. This is not an insurance giveaway. This is making it where people can go to the doctor and get care when they need it.
Congresswoman Julie Johnson, Democrat of Texas, I appreciate the time. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. Great to be with you.
Holiday cookies round 4. Peanut butter cookies with Hershey's Kisses in the middle, very seasonal. They smell great here on the set, but members of Congress, they smell something different. Jet fumes, they're all getting out of town. Our political reporter panel, we'll talk about that and many other things when we come back here on The Takeout. Welcome back to The Takeout. If you can hear my voice, and I know you can, we can thank Kyla Duff for that. She's one of our many great audio techs. That's her day job. But last night, she made these. Holiday cookies round 4. As I mentioned before, we went to break. Peanut butter cookies with Hershey Kisses inserts, and I'm going to hand them out to our reporter panel before I get to the sound that we're going to go to on health care. House Democrats remain unified, as you might expect, on the broad issue of health care, calling for Republican colleagues to vote at some point in the near future. It won't happen this calendar year, but maybe early next year, to extend expiring Obamacare tax credits. Here, earlier today, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries.
The Republican health care crisis is unacceptable, unconscionable, and un-American. And our message to Mike Johnson is clear. You can run, but you cannot hide.
Not just candy, I bring cookies now to the family table every night this week, and our reporter panel joins us now. Daniela Diaz covers Congress for Notice. Remember, that's News of the U.S. Nicholas Wu, same beat, Congress for Politico. Great to have you here. Thanks for joining me. Daniela, before we get to healthcare, we've talked a lot about that during the show. Tomorrow's a big day with the Epstein files. What are the expectations lawmakers have about what they will or won't see?
I spoke to dozens of lawmakers this week, Major, who don't know what they're going to see when these files drop, presumably at midnight. That's the last possible moment that the Department of Justice...
So their expectation is the Trump Justice Department will wait until the very last moment.
Their expectation is yeah, exactly that. Also, that maybe there will be a lot of redactions in these files. A lot of names won't be included, possibly the president's name, who we saw in that Vanity Fair piece earlier this week. Susie Wiles, his chief of staff, admit that he might potentially be named in whatever we see
Didn't do anything awful, but is in the files that she has read.
Yeah, so...
That's what she said on the record.
And the Democrats on the House Oversight Committee, you mentioned this earlier in the show, have been doing a drip of files that they got from the Epstein estate that has been pretty shocking, very uncomfortable files. We've seen very famous, prominent people pictured with Epstein, including President Donald Trump, who was then, very billionaire Donald Trump of New York. But it's going to be regardless of what we see, newsworthy, because it's either we see some very damning information or it's going to be that they didn't actually reveal much, and the MAGA-based Democrats that have been fighting for this are going to be disappointed. I mean, it's going to be potentially lose-lose.
Nicholas, any thoughts?
Well, I think the ongoing issue with these files will be what happens after that. There is this insatiable desire among, like Danielle was saying, the MAGA base, among conspiratorially minded folks who might think that, okay, this drop might have arrived, but what else is beyond that? And there might be nothing that the administration or the Hill could ever provide to allay that.
To satisfy those who are of that particular perspective.
Right.
There's always going to be something more they're curious about. Danielle, I'm curious about your thoughts on what transpired this week when it comes to something that just doesn't happen that often. I can't emphasize this enough. Discharge petitions are highly unusual legislative maneuvers. They're essentially a jailbreak for the majority party to the minority party to force the majority leadership to do something it doesn't want to do.
Highly unusual is saying it kindly. I mean, it's truly a tool. Nick and I have covered Congress at one point together at the same company. We didn't see this in past terms of Congress. It's a tool that we're even seeing the majority use. I mean, Ana Paulina Luna, a congresswoman, is using this to try to get her stock ban legislation on the House floor. So the fact that 4 Republicans, moderate Republicans to be clear, who have been voicing their need to be able to have some sort of Affordable Care Act subsidies vote on the House floor for their constituents, joined all Democrats to be able to move this legislation across the floor because House Speaker Mike Johnson was not guaranteeing anything for them. Incredibly, incredibly notable.
And Nicholas, I want to show our audience CBS polling on this question of the economy. President's speech last night is part of the context of it. 32% rated as good. 63% rated as bad. That is consistent with polling data from lots of other news organizations and polling firms. It's consistent, I'm told, with what Republicans are seeing in their own private data. That's why the president is now, last week in Pennsylvania, last night on prime time, tomorrow in North Carolina, trying to switch the impressions of where this economy actually is.
Absolutely, and that's part of what we're seeing leading to this whole perfect storm of rebellion in the House over these last few days. You have the mixture of this tiny House margin that makes something like the discharge petition possible. You have these purple district Republican lawmakers who are seeing some of these warning signs for them very early that they very well could lose re-election, and they're trying to find some way, any way, to put distance between themselves, between their party and the president, and that's what leads to this. Danielle and I would often talk about how we have this boilerplate language we put into every story about a very rare procedural move of a discharge petition. We might need to amend that these days.
Yeah.
Danielle, we got about 30 seconds.
It's now the norm. I mean, we're watching rank-and-file Republicans buck their leadership to do something for their constituents.
To basically stake out a place where they feel they might be able to preserve their political future.
And those battleground district Republicans are who make a majority. I mean, when we talk to rank-and-file Republicans, which we do every day, they're the ones saying, look, we're the reason Speaker Mike Johnson is the speaker.
Right. What makes a majority also can make a minority. And what also happened this week, maybe didn't get a lot of attention, House Democrats widened their aperture of potentially competitive seats that they're going to put some money in.
Yeah, what they're seeing are these, warning signs from Republicans, the polling, the economic data, signs that, they think that they would be able to compete in a place that President Trump won by, over a dozen points last year.
8, 10, 12, which is what they would not have considered even 4 months ago.
Totally inconceivable earlier in the year, but it's a sign of the confidence among Democrats right now.
Enjoy your cookie. It's super delicious. Daniela Diaz, Nicholas Wu, thank you so much. A less than 1% chance of surviving cancer. That's what doctors told my next guest, who writes about this experience in his book, Forever Optimistic. You'll meet him next right here on The Takeout. The holiday cookies. They're a movable feast. You can see them right here on the conversation corner table. I was told we were going to come in on that shot, but we're good to it eventually. There it is. And you see a book, which I'm going to talk to you about now, because it all starts with a small fender bender, which then, in a very strange way, led to what approximated a medical death sentence. It's part of Robert Bram's 11-year cancer journey. We cannot do justice to it in 5 minutes, but we're going to get to as much as we can. The book, Forever Optimistic, Fighting Brain Cancer, Fighting Your Best Path. Wait a minute. Finding your best path and leading a life with purpose. Robert, it's great to have you with you. Thank you, John. Show the crowd this. check this out. He brought a visual aid. Okay, that's 2019, his second brain cancer surgery. Robert, summarize the high or low points as you evaluate them through this 11 years.
Okay, well, thanks for having me on the show. So I want to help inspire other people to make it when they're up against the wall, up against a difficult situation.
Told they are very likely to die.
Yeah, well, right, and that's how things worked out for me. And my family were told, like, I was out of it I was like off the planet. And after about 4 hours after my surgery, and my wife said, something's going wrong here. And if you don't get this guy in for a scan, I'm going to wake up the whole damn hospital.
This was the first time around.
First time around, right, in 2015.
And she was right.
And she was right. Turns out I had a hemorrhagic stroke. I was going to go into a coma. It was insane. And then after that, she saw everything. I didn't. I mean, but I don't recall like floating over my own body. But it was really kind of crazy. And I sort of owe it to the fact that I played sports as a kid. I was a wrestler, 9th grade, lost every single match except one I tied. And then my senior year, I was undefeated, went to state tournament, won the divisions.
Learned resilience,
discipline, all that.
And fighting on.
And fighting on, and won the finals match to go to the States with a pinning combination, which my coach was saying, don't do it. Anyway, but those are the things that I really think about in life, even now, 50 years later, right, that give me the inspiration to move on forward.
And I want my audience to know that you are a very successful attorney here in Washington, D.C., and kind of, not the top of the top, but very near the top, cream of the crop here in D.C., very successful. And you learned, as many people do, sadly, that you can be at the top of some game and a medical intervention can take you right down.
Exactly.
And you got to find a way to climb back up when you don't have a roadmap.
Look, after my first surgery, I couldn't walk, I couldn't think, I couldn't speak, okay? It required years of therapy to come back to life like I am today. People wouldn't notice now, basically, that I have any problem whatsoever, but I do. I get tired very easily, and I'm like the bad cell phone, where you recharge the battery and it only works for an hour. Give me 10 minutes sleep and I'm back with you.
I said we wouldn't be able to do justice to this, but we've got about a minute, Robert. You got a second diagnosis, had to have a second intervention. What was that like? To think you had not conquered it, but came close to conquering it and then knocked back down again?
Well, you know what? I'm actually surprised that I've been able to deal with the situation as well as I have. And it's really worked out well. I mean, after the second surgery, I was walking that night, far different than the first surgery. And I was walking the hills of San Francisco then like 3 days later. So think night and day between what happened the first time and the last time. But, you know, I want to encourage your audience to recognize that if they're strong, if they really look closly at their successes, that they can beat this. Because now I've gone through an MRI where they found it to be totally stable. And so that's great. My wife and I are overjoyed, as is my family.
So would you classify yourself as cancer-free?
I would not.
You would not, but you're stable and it's...
I'll have MRIs for life.
MRIs for life, but you'll keep monitoring it?
Yeah.
And you're obviously in a much, much better place. And I'm glad you're here. I appreciate you coming in.
Thanks
Thank you so much. Thanks so much.
Take care.
Happy Thursday, everyone. This is The Takeout. You know where we are, but a quick reminder, relentlessly curious, reliably civil, only occasionally clever. The Daily Report, coming up next.